Imagine having your home mortgage paid for every week.
The rent next door would pay for a whole mortgage for both properties.
Today, you'll hear the story of how a young Aussie couple house hacked their way to not only that, but also 400 grand profit as well.
2 semi-detached, 1 title, we could split that, rent out one side, live in the other.
Cameron Holoubek, serial flipper, construction worker and BA, shares the highs and lows of splitting a property into two.
It was dusty, it was dank, dark, the 3 Ds.
And the one element the entire project's profit rested on. That is like the keystone to this project, if you will. If you couldn't get it done, you don't have 2 titles. The money's not there. Cameron and his wife Rach have done a few projects now, but none quite as involved as the one you're about to hear. If you're interested to learn how house hacking works in Australia, you're going to enjoy this episode. My name's Todd Sloan, and you're listening to my chat with Cameron Holoubek. If the episodes we've been producing have been helping you as an investor, it means a lot to me personally and will help the growth of the channel get in front of more investors like you if you press the subscribe button just before this video starts. Thank you. Now let's get into the chat. Cameron Holoubek, it's been too long. How you going, man?
Has been a while. Great to be here, Todd.
Mate, I reckon the last episode you and I did, I was just telling you, guess what? I've signed a lease on a studio and now we're sitting in it together.
Here we are in the flesh.
Mate, it's actually good to do this in person. I think we've got a pretty cool story in front of us that you're about to unfold for, I think house hacking is one of the main flavors of this, talking about the ROI that you've actually got on the rental side of things, but then some pretty amazing stuff around how you solved a problem with a firewall to add a boatload of value to this property, which potentially, if the problem wasn't solved, could have just completely gone unrealized. But man, why don't we just jump straight into it and let's talk about the searching for this property. Tell me what was it? Where were you? How much was it? All the details.
So I guess the context leading up to this is me and my partner, we were looking for a principal place of residence. We'd been renting past 4 years, 3 different places. We're getting a bit sick of it. And so we actually went to the local beach that we'd gone to when we were kids. And we thought, this is quite nice. It's been a while since we've been here. Let's check out what's for sale.
And this is what, north, south, west? Where
West.
Are you? West.
Yeah, west.
Okay.
Yep. And close to the beach, obviously, around that area. So we popped up on real estate app and up came this property, and it was 2 semi-detached properties on 1 title. And I guess I wanted to leverage off all the experience I'd done with renovating in the past.
Because how many have you flipped now? Like 10, 12?
More than that.
More than that now?
Yeah, by now. Yeah, I actually haven't done the count.
Okay.
I wanted to use that experience that I had to really maximize our principal place of residence and have a bit of an investment element to it than just buying something that's brand new and starting from that base point.
Yep. I love this. This house hacking is something that's so popular in America. They seem to throw it around. It's like, oh yeah, just buy a duplex, buy a triplex, buy a quadplex and like live in one and rent it out. It's not as common in Australia.
No, it isn't. You're right. And a lot of they convert the basements as well, and they rent that out separately, which is something we don't do here. Yeah,
if you're in Queensland, it's a little bit more common because then if you're on the stilts, as long as you're legal height, you can close everything in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have too many Queenslanders in Adelaide.
Yeah, so it was a rare find, and I immediately gravitated towards it because I thought, geez, we could 2 semi-detached, 1 title, we could split that, rent out one side, live in the other.
And so you're doing the numbers on this, basically looking at it as we're only going to be paying half the mortgage kind of thing.
Well, my initial sums was that the rent next door would pay for a whole mortgage for both properties.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I was excited with the deal.
Yeah, I bet.
Had to convince the partner because it needed a lot of love. This property. We went and saw it the next day, and a lot of green, a lot of beige. Yeah, all the carpets were green. It was dusty, it was dank, dark, the 3 Ds.
Dank, dark, and dusty.
Yeah. I just made that one up, but
that's good.
it needed a lot of love.
Dank.
Yeah,
that word doesn't get too much airtime.
Both of them were renovated for $280 a week at the time.
Yep.
But I remember the conversation.
Did you say renovated or rented?
Sorry, rented. Yes,
okay.
rented for $280 a week.
Yep.
And I remember we walked out of that. You spend 10 minutes in this property, and the floorboards were dipping down at the corner like a slippery dip. It was
So there was a few structural concerns.
Yeah, when you're looking at that, you think, what's going on underneath? It was a timber framed 1910 place, ironclad. So knowing when you break down construction of a house, especially on timber stumps, when you break that down, everything can be fixed. Coming back from a construction background for over 10 years, I knew anything could be fixed if needed to. Well, that we found.
And for anyone that's just thinking, if they haven't listened to an episode with you on the show before, because Cameron's been on the show, I think this is the third time we've done an episode together. Can you tell us just a very brief little synopsis of your construction background?
Yeah, so been past 13 years, been in commercial construction. And then while I was in that, I was doing flipping of properties as well for some side income.
Okay, so this isn't your first rodeo by any stretch?
Yeah, definitely. No, it wasn't. And I wouldn't recommend it for someone just starting out this scale of project, as we'll get into.
So you're walking through this place with Rach, floors dipping, green carpets. I'm assuming it's got a bit of a smell, especially if the word dank has been thrown out there. Is she needing a bit of convincing, or is she like, no, I'm on board with this? Like, where are you guys at?
Yeah, definitely did some nudging in the right direction, but I guess she was coming from a point where it was keen, motivated to get out of renting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you both had some motivation there, just coming from slightly different areas.
Yeah. And she didn't need the brand new home. Neither of us. We just wanted something that we could call our place, renovate it to our taste and liking.
Why not? Because there's a few people I can almost guarantee are listening right now going, why would you go to all that effort? Just build, just live in something that's nice and new already.
Yeah, that's the easy way out. Well, I guess some people would say building is tough, brand new home, and the delays that we're experiencing in the construction industry. But for me, it's manufacturing growth. I saw a lot of value in doing that, spending some money, getting it revalued, being able to pull that out plus some, going again for the next one.
The property you're describing is pretty run down, and I know sometimes if it's too run down, that can make it a bit tricky to get financing. Was it at that level? Were there any kind of problems in securing the loan?
Well, it was more because I was at the time doing a development, actually. So that's what caused I had to put a high deposit up for the bank's purposes. So
how high are we talking?
It was 30% I had to put in.
Yeah, right. And did you sort of shop around for a few different loans that was the best choice, or is that like, no, this is this is the lender we're going with? Or?
Yeah, I went through a mortgage broker and found the best deal for my circumstances.
Yeah, right. So 30%. So how did that affect the budget as far as getting the reno done? Did that make things a bit tight?
It was okay. I had cash reserves that I've been building up over the past 10 years with renovating.
Yep.
And when we were renting, it was around the $300 a week. So we kept things pretty basic.
All right, so 30% wasn't ideal, but it wasn't the end of the world for you because you've been building up the war chest, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew the end goal was to get it all revalued anyway. We'll pull it out once the development would have been done by that point anyway. So it was okay. Can
pull it back at like 80-20 or whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Gotcha. So tell me about your original numbers, even if it's just the rough numbers, because I'm kind of picturing walking through a place like this. Are you thinking 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand? Like where are you thinking roughly you're going to sit?
Well, for my side, I knew that was going to be more. So I was thinking around the 50, 60K.
Okay. Next
door, 20 grand.
Okay. So 20 grand next door. So 50, 60. So you were thinking, let's even call it 60. So you're thinking around 80-ish all up. Okay. And when you're doing next door, like just for anyone thinking, hold on, why is it such a difference? Like was one in worse a condition, or it was just because you were living in one, or what was
exactly? Yeah. Next door was the investment. So I don't want to spend more than I have to. It's a return on investment for that. So if I'm spending 20 and my uplift of rent was $100, there's $5,000 I get back on that 20 grand that I spent. So you got to consider that. Whereas when it's your own place you're living in, there's the personal preferences come into it, your partner's preferences. You might want the built-in cabinetry. You might want the newer kitchen.
The thing that I find fascinating about this, and actually we'll touch on it at the end with the final numbers, so make sure you stick around for that part, because the fact that you ended up spending more than 4 times, I think, on one of them than you did the other, the end valuation on both was quite interesting.
Worked out,
yeah. Yeah. But before we get into all of that, can we start talking about a few of the issues and the roadblocks that you ran into? I wanted to talk to you about the firewall, because I feel like that is like the keystone to this project, if you will. If you couldn't get it done, you don't have 2 titles. The money's not there.
Yep.
So from what you were telling me before, you hit a few pretty decent sized roadblocks that made it look like maybe this actually wasn't going to happen. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Firewall, the challenges you overcome, all the rest of it?
Yeah, you're exactly right though. This was the backbone of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I had to separate the two properties to get the value that I was anticipating. So on one title, when I went through the surveyors to get it council approved, the caveat was I had to put a firewall in to be able to split them.
Okay. And you went about that because, again, construction background, you're not a complete novice. You've flipped over a dozen properties. Are you looking at this already thinking, yeah, I got this? Or are you still looking at it going, this might be tricky?
At the start, I didn't know how I was going to do it, actually. I just knew there would be a way, but it just comes down to cost, doesn't it, and time.
Yep.
So what do you need to do to make that wall compliant with your fire ratings?
Okay, so can you talk us through the very start? You're standing in this place, dank green carpet. You're looking at the wall going, I know this needs to be a firewall.
Yeah.
And actually, just quickly before we start it, anyone going, what is a firewall? Can you just give a very brief description as to what a firewall is?
Well, in this case, you needed a passive fire solution.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was a fire that started on one side
Mm-hmm.
of the semi-detached properties, you don't want it traveling to next door. You want to give the time for the occupants to be able to escape without, fire engulfing everything straight away.
And so normally the way that's done in a property like this is you build something solid between the actual wall itself, but then also if it's on stumps like this is, it has to go then down to the ground through the stumps.
Yep.
Plus it has to go up through the roof trusses, like into
underside to the iron cladding roof.
Correct.
In this case. So yeah, it was huge. It was about a 17-meter wall.
That's a big wall.
Massive. It was massive.
Even Donald Trump's looking at that. That's that wall there.
It's a great wall. And so it was complicated to find the right detail because I didn't want to build another stud wall next to it because then the alignment, it would mean it would hit the side light of the front door. It's a massive cost to build a whole new wall on an existing property.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trolling through many details. I was actually ringing a bunch of people. I was speaking to someone interstate in Queensland and he was giving me some advice, just free advice actually. But a lot of them were saying you'd have to cut the floor joists and then build another supporting structure for that either side.
And so you're seeing dollar signs adding up very
it's
quick.
massive, yeah, and the time impact. So putting a fire rated board all the way up to the underside of the roof, down all the way to the ground, huge exercise. So
did anyone give you any rough numbers on what it could have cost if it had gone down that path?
No, I didn't actually. I just knew I didn't want to do that.
Okay.
Because and a lot of people, you say it's a shaft liner construct. So it's all this framing in the ceiling space, and then you're doing fire rated board either side.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a lot of costs.
Yep.
So I ended up relying on some contacts in the industry. I rang someone who then got passed on to someone else and found this company who specialized in passive solutions.
Okay. And what is a passive fire solution?
So it's something that's not active. You got your sprinklers.
Yep.
So that's more of an active system, but this is more passive to help prevent the fire traveling across the building.
So it's more like if a teenager was to design a fire solution.
That is terrible.
I sounded like 38 the other day, so I feel like I'm an old man now. I can say stuff like that.
You're in that category. It's just preventing the spread of the fire and the smoke.
Yep. Okay.
And this company found a product where they could use, like, it's basically a fire blanket.
Okay.
So rather than having doing a structural framework in the ceiling space under the flooring, it's a blanket that could be pinned up the top and then just run down like a curtain.
This is already sounding so much more cost effective.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely. So I still had to do fire rated board either side of the wall.
Okay.
I actually invested in it's called resilient furring channel as well.
Resilient furring
channel.
channel.
So you got your furring channels, which is like a U shape,
Yep.
and you fix that to your stud work. But this, you only fix one side of the furring channel, and it sort of allows the fireboard to float away from the stud, because I was very mindful that we only had one stud wall, so the cavity wasn't huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very mindful of the acoustic properties of this wall, because if we're living in one side, we didn't want to hear the tenant and vice versa.
Absolutely.
So I really had to beef that up. So yeah, it just floats this resilient furring channel floats the board away from the stud work.
Interesting.
To help absorb.
And that absorbs a lot of the sound more than anything? Or
vibration, sound. Yeah.
There you go.
So I helped. If anyone wants any information on that, feel free to contact me.
I like it. And how long did this end up taking doing it this way as well? Was that kind of like the what's it called, the playoff? Is it like it took longer, or was longer to get through council? Or
no, it was definitely, I helped as much as I could with the detailing. Now that I knew the product and he was in consultation with the person that was signing it off, I created all the details to make it an easy submission to the council to expedite everything. But I had to wait. The thing is, I had to wait for next door to move out. So when I came into my side, I ripped off all the linings, started to the fire rated board, but then had to leave it like that. Then when the tenants moved out, so we moved in June 2021, and then the tenants next door moved out in September. So we were busy doing all the renos on our side. And then when the tenants moved out next door, we were straight in there because it's the opportunity cost, not getting the rent coming in.
Then you're holding the whole mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. So then tenant moved on. We ripped off the linings on their side, started the fire rated board. So then I could get the specialist company in to do the fire rating on the other side.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like it wasn't like it was done in a weekend. It was a bigger job, but it was also a longer job simply because of the way that you had to wait for tenants to move out on one side. You were living on the other side.
Yeah.
What do you reckon it took all up time-wise?
Well, so from when we purchased in March 2021, we moved in June 2021, started doing as much as we could until the tenants moved out next door. And then that was in September. They moved out. We did all the fire rating. We had to split services. So new sewer separation, new water separation, electrical boards separated. We only had gas that was already separated. And once that was done, plus doing the reno on next door, it took us to about end of Jan. And we had, that's when we had a tenant in, about end of Jan.
So solid sort of 9 months, if I've done my maths right.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Yeah. For all that, which is, there's a lot of work to be done in 9 months.
Absolutely. Okay, and so now it's actually 2 different titles. There's different power, different sewer, a firewall in between. So the equity uplift side of things is really coming together for the property.
Yeah, that's right. So now you can get it revalued for 2 separate Torrens titled properties. And that was another option. We could have done community titled where you share some services. But I thought for the extra cost, I think it was about 10 grand or so, I might as well spend it and get Torrens titled because I just know the value was more than a community titled.
And when it was the 10 grand, what would have been the difference? Like basically just like your services?
Yeah, it was basic services. So the one electrical board that was running both of them at the moment would have just stayed.
Yep.
The same water feed in, and there was a sub meter for the water meter that would have just stayed. And the same sewer as well.
And you're only looking at 10 grand difference. So yeah, it does make sense having both as Torrens. All right. So now you've pulled it together. So you're actually going to be able to get the equity out of this place that it deserves, that you think, and this is the potential. What did it end up costing?
The cost for that,
like the firewall.
Yeah, the firewall, everything together was about 15 grand.
15. And what do you reckon? I know you said you didn't have like solid numbers, but do you reckon it would have been what, 20, 30, 40?
Yeah, could have been double that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think if you had to do a framing all in the ceiling space and under the floor as well, and you're installing big sheets, heavy. It's like this was a blanket, so easy to get access into the ceiling space, just bring it up through the manhole.
Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently with the firewall from the get-go?
I probably could have got the fire rating done in the ceiling space and under the floor. But the thing is, I needed approval from the council. So if I went ahead and done that too early, there's a risk that they wouldn't approve it. So I've spent all this money and I'd have to rip it down and then do maybe a shaft liner construction.
And how does the approval process work then with this company that you use? Because didn't they have something to do with that as well?
Yeah. The council needed a signature basically from a company that says, yes, this is all compliant. That's what they were looking for.
So they weren't approving it, they were making it compliant or signing off the compliance.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay, so the council still approves. All right, I'm just thinking of anything else that if I was watching this right now, I'm thinking I'm about to build a firewall or I'm about to do this. What else would I want to know? And really, I want to know how much it costs, how long does it take, who's involved, and it sounds like we've already sort of really listed off all of those. But is there anything else you can think of that's a useful one? Because I don't actually think we've ever talked about a firewall on the show.
I've heard of like for unit blocks, people strata tiling them separately and building a firewall. But I don't know if they've used this product that I have used. It's probably been a shaft liner. So yeah, it just ticks all around. Cheaper, quicker.
All right. So Google Passive Fire Solutions, is that what you want to, or is that the company name?
It's Adelaide Passive Fire Solutions.
Okay. But if someone's in Perth trying to do this, or if they're in Queensland trying to do this, that's also just what you're looking for, is a passive fire solution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like it, man. What other kind of roadblocks did you hit? There's always a few juicy kind of problems you got to overcome with a reno.
Yeah. So when we had settlement and we had access, we were ripping up the carpets, and the first thing we had to work out was what's going on with these floors, because they were dipping in some areas. And yeah, wow, we had a lot of work ahead of us. We went underneath the floor, and there was a whole a timber bearer missing on one perimeter of the house.
Yeah, wow.
It was just held up with Besser blocks, the floor joists. So that was interesting. So I think I poured like 20 timber posts underneath the house just to reinforce it. And because they had permanently deformed, I worked with a carpenter actually, me and him working together, and he would just have to break them, like the floor joists, because they'd deformed so much. Break them, re-support them, get them level. In between the kitchen and living, we removed the wall, and there was about a 90 mil difference in the height.
90 mil? So that's a lot of. Are you getting concerned at any point, like maybe I've got some subsidence, or maybe there's something else going on here, or are you like, nah, it's just 100 years old, this is how it works?
Yeah, it's just old, more so, and I'm never going to get it perfect. I knew that. There's always going to be differences. It's sandy soil around there, so it wasn't reactive. But yeah, so there was a fair bit of work on the flooring to be done. So that was a bit of a roadblock, getting that all sorted. And then when we were doing the demo, oh my gosh, we ripped down one of the walls between the kitchen and living, and I took this off and I found a massive termite nest.
How massive is massive? Because termites, even if I find one, I'm getting pretty nervous. Like, how big are we talking?
So the wall between the kitchen and living that I was removing, when I removed the lining, it was like the whole stud was filled, and hopefully we can put a photo of that in. But and so your heart sort of stops, and your heart's beating, racing. Oh, geez, where else have they gotten to? Is there something I've missed in the ceiling space? Is this whole house is going to fall down? But fortunately, it was inactive.
Okay, so you ended up looking at it going, oh my God, is the whole house about to fall down? How long between that feeling of and actually going, okay, no, we got this? Like, can you talk us through the process? Because I've found termites in renos before, and it's not a good feeling. But I know that if someone's taken on their first reno and they see termites, it can be very disheartening.
You hear the horror stories, don't you?
Yeah. So can you sort of talk us through from to we're good?
I guess the context was also part of the Form 1. There was termite inspections done every year.
Yep.
So I said, okay, well, someone's looking at this property every year and making sure there's no more further damage. But I did do some investigation work straight after. I was running along from that wall, going in the ceiling space a bit more, investigating, but I couldn't find any more termite activity, fortunately.
So you basically went on a mission looking after that?
Yeah, just further investigations to see if I could see any more activity.
Okay. And so it's had previous termite inspections pretty consistently on the Form 1?
Yeah, it looked like yearly.
Okay. And for anyone that's wondering what's a Form 1 is essentially a disclosure document that gets served to you in South Australia if you purchase a property. It's also tied together with triggering the cooling off period on a fully executed contract. So if you're buying in Queensland, Perth, Tassie, like it's all different. Some states don't even have a disclosure document when you're purchasing. So this is just purely a South Australian thing that Cam's referring to here.
Yeah,
and
good clarification.
And so that would have made you feel a lot more comfortable then?
Yeah, definitely more at ease after that.
Okay, if someone didn't have the construction experience, or let's say you didn't, what should they have done, or what would you have done?
Well, you can see if there was activity. You can see if there's termites in the nest at all. So pull it apart, see if you can see any further activity. And you could do your own investigations. If you don't want to get up in the ceiling space, you could always hire a building inspector with a specialist equipment to look further if you wanted to.
Yep. Just to sort of dot that I and cross the T. Yeah. Yep.
But I had ripped down a lot of the linings anyway, even between in all the bathroom areas, the wet areas, even the cladding on the outside I've replaced and put insulation because there was no insulation in this place. So I could see if there was any activity, didn't need the specialised camera to do it.
So you've had a little termite scare, but you've got over that pretty quick. You've jumped on top of it. You're pretty active. The firewall sounds like it was a little bit tricky to begin with, but after 50 odd phone calls by the sounds of things.
It had to happen. I just remember that standing there and going, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I just remember that distinctively. But you just got to keep pushing forward because that's where the money was, separating it.
And so now that you've separated it, you're like, okay, now it's just a reno pretty much. There's no, like as much as it wasn't a development, it almost feels like a small development kind of aspect to it.
It's got a few layers to it.
Yeah. Firewall's taken care of now. Termites aren't an issue anymore. Well, they were never an issue, but they seemed like it was a bit of a scare.
A bit of a scare.
Yeah, a bit of a scare. What about on the house hacking side of things? Is there any other kind of general reno takeaways that you've got for anyone that's looking at doing something similar?
Yeah, so I guess normally the renos I do, I'm not living in them. So you can just make as much mess as you want. You know, you go hard for those 5-6 weeks that I normally do them in. But this one was different because we had that motivation to move out. We moved in when we hadn't finished our side of the renovation.
Right, yep.
So we moved in, and as I'd mentioned, we didn't have a kitchen set up. It was a lot of takeaway, a lot of microwave food. We're living in a place where the skirtings were off. There's ram board down on the flooring. But then there was a lot of fronts because then the tenant next door moved out. So then we had to put ours on hold, go next door, start renovating that side. But the reason why we did that is because it was an opportunity cost of not getting the income next door back.
Of course. So if you hadn't have done that, your choice would have then been release it in the condition that it's in and then potentially wait another 12 months if you want to then renovate it. So either way, you would have just been pushing the problem forward, wouldn't you?
Well, and it's the firewall though. That was the key.
Of course.
Because I had to get them out so I could do the firewall works.
So for
the backbone of everything.
Anyone wondering why you didn't just do that to begin with, it's because it was tenanted.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
I think they'd get a little bit annoyed if I started knocking down their walls. Yeah. Had to give probably a bit of a discount on the rent for that.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like, hello.
They just right through the wall. Hey.
All right. So the house hacking side of things, what I'm really hearing is if you're happy to put up with a bit of extra mess, essentially living in a construction site, and life got a bit tricky for a while, there's some pretty amazing profit attached to it, potentially, if it's done right though.
Yeah. If you can, it's about that delayed gratification and sacrificing. And we just knew that by putting up with this in that 9-month period, that we will get a lot of benefit later on down the track.
And so now you just had a tenant move out of there recently, I believe.
Yeah.
What's it now appraised at that's about to be relet for?
Yeah. So initially it was renting out for the 280, but it was then 430.
Yep.
After the reno. And then they moved out. They were from Defence Force, so they had to move into state. They'd been there for almost 2 years. And now, we're about to relet it for about $500 a week.
$500 a week?
Is what the property managers told me.
That's huge. And so we're talking about you spent 15 grand on that side.
Yeah, 15 grand in the end. I know my budget was about 20, but we ended up getting secondhand kitchen with all appliances, about 1,500. Got some new flooring. I painted everything I could see. Painted everything inside, outside. Made a world of difference. The bathroom laundry, pretty much the same, just regrouted, silicone.
And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, head on over to our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Pizza and Property. And check this out because the before and afters for this one are pretty cool. But if we could open up a little bit about the final numbers, Cam, what did they look like in the end?
Yeah, so purchase price was $525, and then you've got your stamp duty and fees of about $30K. On our side, we ended up spending $80K, but that included the deck, the pergola, new cladding on the outside, split systems in each room. We did a built-in row wall-to-wall that you wouldn't do on an investment. You'd probably just find something secondhand or not even put a wardrobe in potentially.
Get one of those $500 ones at Bunnose or something.
Yeah, flat pack thing. But because we were living there, we wanted a bit more storage. So, you're doing a lot more work. So it ended up being about $80K, but that also included all the front fencing, which was like the emu fencing style, and then the back fencing as well.
So emu fencing. So you've kept this looking like pretty cute as well.
Yeah,
like
kept the character because that's the value, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It ties it all in.
Yeah, I've never understood that sometimes when you drive past a bungalow and it's got like some kind of modern black box on the back of it.
It's a good neighbour fence at the front or
Yeah,
something.
like
yeah,
it
it just doesn't tie in, does it?
Yeah. So you've kept the character of the home. And so what have you reckon that is? So you said, was it 15 for the reno for the investment property side?
Yeah.
Was it 80?
80, about 80, let's say, on our side.
Okay. And then what did the final val come in at?
And then so exactly a year after, we got it revaluated and the investment side came back at 470.
And so this was 2023?
2022.
2022?
Yeah. So
okay.
bought it in 2021.
Yep.
2022. 470 for the investment side. And then our side, because we'd done a bit more, was 550.
So you're looking at roughly, what, $300,000 profit. And this is 2022. So before, like the market was still doing well and there's probably a bit of market uplift in there.
Definitely. Yeah. For a year's worth.
But we're not talking about like measuring it to today's dollars. So today's dollars, what do you reckon you'd be sitting on now?
It would be interesting. I think up to 1.2 if you had to get it revalued in today. And plus I've done some extra stuff on my side. I've got electricity to the shed. I've done some landscaping, on the cheap as well. And got automated irrigation system. The front's got some lawn now. It was actually a new veranda because I had an insurance claim because the front veranda came down in a storm.
Yeah, right.
So I got that all redone. So you have a few more improvements since that time as well.
So you'd be looking around 1.2, so around $400,000 approximately, and your cash flow on it. You're now renting one side out for $500 a week, or about to rent it out for $500 a week.
Yep.
So if you were to rent your side out as well, that would probably fetch a little bit more because by the sounds of things, the reno's a bit nicer.
Yeah. So the shed at the back with electricity as well, deck pergola.
So you probably look at more 560, 600?
Yeah, between that.
Okay, so you're looking at potentially an $1,100 a week property for what were you all in on the spending again? That was like 700,000.
705.
705 approximately.
Yeah.
So as a yield on purchase, not on final val, you're talking about like an 8% yield if you and Rach were to move out and you were to let the whole thing.
And that would be the intent. We don't want to sell them. We want to hold on to them. So then for our next purchase, we would, hold on and rent both out.
I've got to ask, as someone that has done quite well flipping, why stop? Why not just flip these as well? Or maybe one of them?
No, I definitely saw some value in holding. I think doing both is my strategy at the moment is I'll hold properties. I've got a portfolio. This is not the only one I have, but I've seen particularly over this period, the growth by just holding. And I look back in time on some of the flips that I've done and I think if I just held that one, it'd be worth quite a lot. But I also like flipping for the cash flow, especially when you can use other people's money, not your own money.
Yep.
That's what I want. I'm trying to build up my serviceability. I've pulled away from work because of what I do with property, but I've got to build that cash flow again so I can get serviceability with the bank. And so flipping is helping with that.
So what are you looking at doing now? More like a bit of a 50-50 kind of split?
I just wherever the opportunity is. Yeah, as soon as I can borrow again, I probably will look at buying some more properties. But yeah, I just see the value in it. It's just building up your asset base. So then it's just passively growing.
Because I always find this fascinating, and this is something that you and I have chatted about quite a lot because I've only ever sold one of my own, and it was the first purchase which I regrettably bought. But again, like some people are like, no, you got to flip. Like I talked to one investor that sold his entire portfolio.
Wow.
And it was quite substantial.
Yeah.
Just so he could develop. He doesn't hold anything anymore. And it's like, that's the whole thing. He's like, Todd, I make so much more money just developing and selling. But it's like, there's no asset base to it. But it sounds like you're kind of looking at it now going, well, why not have both?
Yeah.
Why don't I get the benefits of flipping, but still build a portfolio as I go as well?
Totally. And if you can get funding partners to your project, it's unlimited, really. You can scale that up. You don't always have to think that I need the money personally to do a flip. You can borrow other people's money, pay them a return on investment, or, do a joint venture with them. So really, sky's the limit for that. Like for that guy that does the development, he could have got money partners and kept his portfolio as well.
He did. I won't say who it is, but he didn't like dealing with them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very, And it's, at the end of the day, it's personal preference, isn't it? And it's what lifestyle you want. For me, I just knew there'll be a point where I probably don't want to be actively renovating. I just want a portfolio to just grow in value passively while I enjoy my life.
I like it. And you're having a little bit more family time now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, only do 2 days a week with my original employment.
Yep.
And the other days I'm co-parenting and enjoying the simple things in life, but then also doing renovating as well. So you can focus on the stuff I love, because that's important. That's what you need to do is find something you enjoy doing and do more of that. And if you can make some money, great.
How long until you can take your little one to a reno site?
She's already been coming to the inspections with me. Yeah. She's actually my lucky charm.
Love it.
She got her blue eyes, so she's sort of
flutters her eyelids a little bit.
Helps get some discount on the purchase price. No, not quite, but I'm already getting her involved. So keen to get that child labour in place. So
absolutely. Why not? I'm keen. Bianca and I are talking about little people, and I've got this little fantasy about having one of those, what are they called? Like the baby backpack thing, but it faces forward. In my head, I'll just keep renoing with the kid on my chest. I'm pretty sure it's not going to work that way.
As long as she's got safety glasses or he's got safety glasses, that's all you need.
Yeah, and maybe a little hard hat or something.
Yeah, be very cute.
Looks adorable in my head, but whether it happens that way or not, I'll probably end up just with like poo on me and it's crying all the time.
I remember you actually said, you're like, hey Cam, we were trying to organise a time, and you said, because I was mentioning that I had to look after Mila at the time, and you said, just the studio. Just bring her in the studio and Bianca can look after her.
That's what I was thinking. This is a good idea.
And I was laughing my head off, because I just know the reality is not quite like that. She'd be zooming around the room into everything.
Yeah, would have been a very different episode.
Oh, totally.
Probably a bit more energy though.
There'd be a lot more editing for Jared over there, unfortunately.
Oh, mate. So as far as some action steps, or an action step, one in particular, if someone's been really inspired by this, listen to your story, I thought, I like the cut of this guy's jig. I like what he's doing. I'd like to do a little bit more of this, or maybe even start doing this. What's one action step they can put into place straight away today?
So part of this is you got to have, if you're in a relationship as well, you got to have both people on board, because if you're like, I would recommend a strategy of buying something, buy it well, but needs a renovation. Like it might be original condition or as is condition. I wouldn't necessarily buy something brand new already done, because you can't manufacture that growth. But it all just comes back down to your goals. Like, so if you want to spend more time with the family, you want to retire early, you're not enjoying your job, you just want some more options, I would say, well, maybe don't necessarily get the brand new house or the brand new car. Your decisions are going to align with those goals you have. So as I said, one strategy is buy something that needs work, and maybe you move into that. So it's not glossy. When you have your housewarming, it's not as impressive as a brand new glossy house, of course.
It's a bit danker than
it's a bit more dank, isn't it?
I'm going to use that word more now.
Danker the better.
Now you just sound German. Danker.
But I just think if you're not trying to impress everyone, and you're considering that your long-term goals are X, Y, Z, that if you bought something that needed work, and you don't have to do it in a couple of months, though I would do it in, like, just take your time. Everyone's different. Everyone's lifestyle is different. You've got other commitments. So everyone's situation is unique.
Something it might have actually even been you. Something that I got told ages ago, and I think this is a wonderful little piece of wisdom to take away. If you're thinking about doing a reno, and especially if you already live somewhere, or if you don't live somewhere that you own, ask maybe a friend to tile like a splashback. Do like one job that's big enough that you get dirty, but not big enough that you're going to get yourself in trouble if you stuff it up. Something along those lines, because I'm hearing what you're saying. I 100% agree with you. I think it's one of the best ways, especially if you're on a low income and you've got a little bit more time, that you can really grow something amazing.
You really accelerate your results for sure. Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here with the portfolio that I've built without reno. Like I owe so much to it.
Yeah.
But I know it's not for everyone. Is that something that you've come across a little bit in the past as well? Maybe people got into it that you've kind of gone, you guys, you probably shouldn't have done this. It's not for you.
Yeah, I do know people that probably bought a house that is the renovator. They've seen that and we can do all this, but then life happens and you've got kids. Like, it is very hard. Like, even for me, there's times where I've got a list and I find, geez, I still haven't done that little bit of caulking or bits and pieces around the house. Why haven't I? And what I find is when you make the list but then set a date and you coordinate it with your partner and go, hey, this weekend we're painting the front porch. which was one of the examples. I hadn't painted the front porch, still the last bit of green. I finally got rid of it.
Yep.
So happy about that now that the tenants moved out. But you've got to really lock it in. And I think a best way for someone to not get overwhelmed is go through each room and make it just a list of everything. Not understanding how the sequence is, just put all the actions down. And then you've got to work out what's the very next action step. The very next, like, is it, if you want to do a new kitchen, is it removing the stuff out of the kitchen and putting it in boxes?
Yep.
Is it buying the barbecue so you can still cook your dinner and lunch?
I'm getting all my taxes sorted at the moment. I can't wait to buy another one, man. I haven't renovated in like a year, and it makes me feel like I've just never done one. Like it's an addiction. After
Those
a while,
nails are way too clean at the moment.
They are
way too clean.
Oh, I could probably use a trim to prove it too long. Anyway,
we should do a joint project or something and do a series. That would be.
Let's talk.
Let's beat the 10 days.
Yeah, I'd like that. All right. I've arguably arrived at the most important question of the entire show. Cameron Holoubek, I've asked you this once before, but I'm going to ask again, or potentially 2 times before. What is your favorite pizza?
So in the past, I've just said what more the better, but I really want to strip that back. Just simple.
Okay.
And it's the margarita.
The margarita.
Homemade, organic. Can I say that? Organic?
Yeah,
organic.
Yeah.
Why not? If you can.
Yeah.
And maybe also I was thinking like just a side of Sicilian green olives.
Okay.
To go with it. And then a bit of olive oil just for your crust, just to dip it in.
Yep.
Because it gets a bit dry sometimes. You just dip that in the olive oil and helps it go down.
Just make sure you're getting local olive oil. Have you heard about that whole olive oil thing on TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok.
It's a bad addiction. Just you're
yeah,
probably doing it right now.
Exactly.
Apparently, there's all of this olive oil out there in the world that's actually not olive oil. It's been some scam the mafia has been running in Italy for years, buying canola oil and rebottling it for 10 times the price as olive oil.
No,
anyway.
The nonnas would know the difference though.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't.
You're not getting past it.
I don't have taste buds of a nonna.
Yeah. Jeez, no, I didn't know that.
Mate, I've enjoyed this episode. You're always good fun to chat to. You've got so much information in your head as far as the construction side of things, making profitable renos, and that's one of the things I really want to emphasize that you do well, in my opinion, mate, is profit. It's all well and good to make it pretty, but as I always say, pretty isn't profit. I think you balance pretty with profit, which is one of the reasons you've done, very well in the space, mate.
Thanks, Todd.
But are there any final words of wisdom or anything you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Now, I guess just touching on another point, the previous point that I made was about just making sure your future goals align with the decisions you're making.
Love it.
In terms of property investing.
Cameron Holoubek, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Todd. It's been fun.